Have you ever caught yourself wondering if there's an invisible force quietly unraveling your relationship? Imagine this. You're doing your best, you love your partner, and yet things feel off. You might not even realize it, but small, unnoticed habits could be chipping away at the bond you've worked so hard to build. It's not always the grand betrayals or explosive arguments that threaten relationships. Sometimes it's the subtle, everyday actions we neglect to consider. Think about this. How many times have we heard the advice, just communicate, or relationships take effort, without anyone explaining exactly what not to do? These generic platitudes offer no actionable insights, and as a result, many couples feel stuck, confused, and frustrated. So let's flip the script. Instead of focusing only on what you should do, let's explore the 9 things you should never do in relationships. These insights aren't just rules, they're guiding principles that align with the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, helping you build a foundation of strength, mutual respect, and emotional clarity. What would change if you identified and eliminated behaviors that slowly poison intimacy and trust? Picture your relationship thriving because you're not only doing the right things but actively avoiding the wrong ones. This is your chance to transform your approach and develop a love that isn't just enduring but deeply fulfilling. Let's start unraveling these 9 pitfalls together. 1. Never take your partner for granted. When was the last time you stopped and truly appreciated your partner, not out of habit or politeness, but with deep sincerity? Relationships often begin with excitement and admiration, but as time passes, routine can quietly replace those early sparks. Without even realizing it, we start to assume our partner's presence, efforts, and love will always be there. But here's the question. How can a relationship thrive when one or both partners feel unnoticed or undervalued? Taking your partner for granted doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It's gradual and insidious, showing up in small, seemingly inconsequential ways. Maybe it's forgetting to say thank you when they help you, no longer complimenting them, or assuming they'll always pick up the slack when you're tired. Over time, these omissions send a message. What you do is expected, not cherished. Can you imagine how that feels for the person on the receiving end? And more importantly, what would it mean for you if the roles were reversed? Think of the early days of your relationship. Remember the thrill of discovering your partner's unique qualities, their kindness, humor, intelligence, or quirks that made them stand out. Now ask yourself, have you allowed that sense of wonder to fade? One of the key principles of Stoicism is to cultivate gratitude for what we have now, instead of longing for what we don't. In the context of relationships, this means actively appreciating your partner's presence and contributions, not because it's required, but because it's essential to maintaining the bond. When you stop expressing gratitude, you risk making your partner feel like they're merely fulfilling a role rather than being loved for who they are. What happens to a relationship when one person feels like a placeholder? Over time, resentment, emotional distance, and disengagement take root. These are difficult patterns to reverse once they've set in, and yet they're entirely preventable. The key lies in awareness and action. It's easy to overlook the little things. The way your partner supports you during tough times, their efforts to make you laugh, or their willingness to put your needs above their own. How many of these moments have you taken for granted recently? Recognizing them isn't just about being polite. It's about fostering a culture of respect and mutual acknowledgement. Love isn't just a feeling, it's an ongoing practice, and appreciation is one of its most vital expressions. But how do you ensure that appreciation becomes part of your daily life? Start small. Pay attention to the things your partner does, whether it's the way they fold your laundry, their thoughtfulness in planning your favorite meals, or even their patience during moments of stress. Once you notice these acts, express your gratitude clearly and sincerely. Avoid generic statements like "thanks for everything" and instead focus on specifics. "Thank you for always making time to listen when I've had a hard day. It means so much to me." Specificity strengthens emotional connections by showing your partner that you truly see them. Stoicism offers a profound reminder that nothing in life is permanent. Relationships, no matter how strong, require effort to endure. What would it mean to you if your partner left tomorrow? What would you wish you'd said or done? While this may sound uncomfortable, it's a powerful way to reframe your mindset. Recognizing the impermanence of life doesn't create fear. It creates urgency to value what's here now. In this way, Stoicism teaches us to nurture what we hold dear, not out of fear of loss, but out of appreciation for its presence. Moreover, gratitude isn't just about grand gestures. While surprise vacations and expensive gifts might make headlines, it's the consistent, meaningful acts that have the most profound impact. A heartfelt compliment, a handwritten note, or even a moment spent reminiscing about a favorite memory can reignite warmth and closeness. These moments remind your partner, I see you, I value you. Another essential component is self-reflection. Ask yourself, have I fallen into the habit of expecting too much and giving too little? Have I made assumptions about my partner's feelings or overlooked opportunities to express my gratitude? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary. Just as we would examine our own thoughts and behaviors in Stoic practice, examining our role in a relationship helps us grow as individuals and as partners. So what happens when you begin to show appreciation consistently? Trust deepens. Emotional intimacy grows. Your partner feels seen, heard, and valued, and that energy flows back into the relationship. Instead of a dynamic where one person feels overlooked, the relationship becomes a space of mutual respect and admiration. Ultimately, taking your partner for granted erodes the very foundation of a relationship: connection. The good news is that it's never too late to change course. Even if you've fallen into this habit, a renewed effort to express gratitude and appreciation can reverse its effects. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. Are you willing to show up for your partner today, not just physically but emotionally, with gratitude for who they are and what they bring to your life? In relationships, the difference between thriving and merely surviving often comes down to this simple truth. Appreciation is the glue that holds love together. Recognize what you have, honor it, and watch how the dynamics shift, not through grand changes, but through consistent, intentional acts of gratitude. As Stoicism teaches, the value of life lies in the present. So too does the value of your relationship. 2. Never dismiss your partner's feelings. Have you ever been in a conversation where you felt completely unheard? Imagine trying to express your emotions only to be met with dismissal or indifference. You're overreacting. That's not a big deal, or worse, silence. It stings, doesn't it? Now think about this. Has your partner ever felt that way because of you? One of the most destructive things you can do in a relationship is to dismiss your partner's feelings. Emotional invalidation, whether intentional or not, erodes trust and creates distance over time. Why? Because when someone's emotions are disregarded, they feel unseen and unheard, as if their experiences don't matter. And let's be honest, isn't that the opposite of what a loving relationship should be? It's easy to fall into this trap without realizing it. Maybe your partner shares a frustration, and because you don't see it as significant, you shrug it off or say something like, "You're making a big deal out of nothing." Or perhaps they express sadness, and instead of engaging, you move on to the next topic, assuming they'll get over it. These moments might seem small to you, but to your partner, they speak volumes. Pause and ask yourself, how often do I truly listen to my partner's emotions without judgment or defensiveness? Listening doesn't mean agreeing with everything they say, it means holding space for their perspective. As Stoicism reminds us, we don't control the emotions of others, but we can choose how we respond to them. What would happen if you approached your partner's feelings with curiosity rather than dismissal? Instead of rushing to fix their problem or minimizing their feelings, consider this approach. Acknowledge first, then respond. For example, if your partner says, "I felt ignored when you didn't call me back," resist the urge to defend yourself with, "I was busy." Instead, acknowledge their experience. "I'm sorry you felt that way. I didn't mean to make you feel ignored." This simple shift transforms what could have been a conflict into an opportunity for connection. When you dismiss someone's feelings, you send the message that their emotions aren't valid. But the truth is, everyone's feelings are valid because they're real to them, even if you don't fully understand or share their perspective. The Stoic principle of empathy teaches us to step into another's shoes and imagine life from their viewpoint. In relationships, This means recognizing that your partner's emotions are shaped by their experiences, not yours. Have you ever taken a moment to reflect on how your actions might feel from their perspective? It's also worth asking, are you creating an environment where your partner feels safe sharing their emotions? Safety isn't just about physical security, it's about emotional openness. If your partner fears being judged, criticized, or dismissed, they're less likely to open up, and over time, this can create a wall between you. Emotional intimacy, the kind that makes relationships thrive, requires vulnerability, and vulnerability can't exist without trust. If this sounds heavy, here's the good news. It's never too late to change how you respond to your partner's emotions. The next time they share a feeling, try this. Pause, listen, and reflect. Instead of rushing to dismiss or fix, ask questions like, can you tell me more about how you're feeling? Or what can I do to support you right now? These questions show that you value their emotions and want to understand them better. The ripple effects of this change are profound. When your partner feels heard and validated, they're more likely to trust you, open up, and reciprocate that same understanding. This creates a positive feedback loop where both of you feel valued and connected. And isn't that what we all want from our relationships? Now, I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Have there been times when you dismissed your partner's feelings, even unintentionally? How do you think it affected them? More importantly, what could you do differently next time? These aren't easy questions, but they're the kind that lead to growth, not just in your relationship, but within yourself. As you think about this, let's engage with each other. If this resonates with you, like in comment number 1 below, to let me know you're with me on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep diving into these meaningful conversations about Stoic relationships. Every week we explore ideas that don't just improve your relationships, they transform them. And as we continue, remember, emotional validation isn't about agreeing with everything your partner says. It's about honoring their feelings and creating a space where they feel respected, supported, and loved. Stoicism reminds us that how we respond to others is entirely within our control. So why not use that power to build a relationship rooted in empathy and understanding? 3. Never compare your partner to others. Comparison, it's something we all do from time to time, often without realizing it. But in relationships, comparisons can be like slow-acting poison, undermining the connection and trust you've built with your partner. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why can't they be more like so-and-so? Or maybe you voiced it aloud, comparing them to a friend, an ex, or even a fictional character. If so, ask yourself this: what is the cost of those comparisons? What are they really achieving? The truth is, no one thrives when they feel measured against someone else. When you compare your partner to others, it sends a subtle but powerful message. They're not enough as they are. Even if you think your intentions are harmless, perhaps you're trying to motivate them or express a desire for improvement. What they hear is criticism. And criticism of their identity, especially in the form of comparisons, can leave lasting wounds. Relationships thrive on acceptance, not competition. Let's pause here. Think about your own experiences. How would it feel if someone you loved compared you to someone else, highlighting how you fell short? Would it inspire you to grow, or would it make you feel smaller, inadequate, and unseen? The Stoic approach reminds us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our words, and our mindset, not the external world, including how our partner measures up to others. What if instead of comparing, you focused on appreciating their unique qualities? One of the dangers of comparisons is that they often rely on incomplete or distorted information. The friend whose spouse seems so thoughtful, you don't see their private struggles. The ex who seemed perfect in hindsight. Memory tends to glorify the past while forgetting its challenges. Social media, too, can amplify this problem as we scroll through curated highlights of other people's lives and relationships. But as Stoicism teaches, external appearances are rarely the full truth. Why hold your partner to a standard that may not even exist? Instead of comparing your partner to others, consider comparing them to one thing: their own growth. How have they changed or improved over the course of your relationship? Perhaps they've become more patient, more communicative, or more understanding of your needs. These are the measures that matter, their personal journey and your shared progress as a couple. By shifting your focus in this way, you align with a Stoic perspective, to value what is real and present rather than chasing illusions or wishing for what isn't. Another trap of comparison is that it often reflects more about us than about our partner. When we wish they were more ambitious or more romantic, it's worth asking, are these desires about them, or are they about insecurities, frustrations, or unmet needs within ourselves? The Stoic practice of self-examination encourages us to take responsibility for our inner world. What unfulfilled expectations are driving you to compare? Can those needs be communicated openly rather than through criticism? If you find yourself falling into the comparison trap, try this exercise. For every time you catch yourself comparing your partner to someone else, immediately name 3 things you value about them. Maybe it's their sense of humor, their loyalty, or the way they always make your morning coffee. This simple practice not only redirects your thoughts but also reminds you of the reasons you chose them in the first place. Gratitude, a cornerstone of Stoicism, is a powerful antidote to the dissatisfaction bred by comparison. It's also important to address the emotional toll comparisons take on your partner. Feeling judged or inadequate can lead to resentment, self-doubt, and even emotional withdrawal. Over time, this creates a divide that can be difficult to repair. When you resist comparisons and instead celebrate your partner for who they are, you foster an environment of trust and safety, a foundation for deep emotional intimacy. Ultimately, the question isn't whether your partner is better or worse than someone else. The question is, are you willing to embrace them as they are, imperfections and all? Relationships aren't about finding the perfect person, they're about learning to love the real person. As Stoicism reminds us, perfection is an illusion, and expecting it only leads to frustration. What would happen if you stopped chasing perfection and started fully appreciating the unique, imperfect beauty of your relationship? At the end of the day, comparisons are a distraction. They pull your attention away from what matters: the connection you share, the moments you create together, and the ways you can grow as a team. Choosing not to compare isn't just a gift to your partner, it's a gift to yourself. It frees you from the cycle of dissatisfaction and allows you to see your relationship for what it truly is: a partnership built on mutual respect, love, and growth. 4. Never avoid difficult conversations. How many times have you swept an issue under the rug, thinking, "I'll deal with it later"? Maybe you thought it wasn't the right time, or you feared that bringing it up would lead to conflict. But let me ask you this: what happens when later never comes? Unspoken issues don't disappear, they fester, growing into silent barriers that chip away at the intimacy and trust in your relationship. Avoiding difficult conversations is one of the most common pitfalls in relationships, and yet, it's also one of the most damaging. Why? Because when we avoid hard topics, whether it's about unmet needs, boundaries, or unresolved conflicts, we deny ourselves and our partner the opportunity to grow together. A relationship without honest communication is like a house built on sand. It might look fine for a while, but it can't withstand the storms of life. Think about it. Have you ever let resentment build because you didn't speak up when something bothered you? Have you avoided talking about finances, expectations, or other challenging topics because you were afraid of the outcome? While it might feel easier in the moment, silence comes at a cost. It creates distance, confusion, and eventually, disconnection. Stoicism teaches us to face challenges with courage and reason, not to run from them. Difficult conversations may be uncomfortable, but they are also necessary. They bring clarity, resolution, and a deeper understanding of each other. What if, instead of fearing these conversations, you embrace them as opportunities for growth? What if each hard discussion could strengthen your bond instead of weakening it? Here's an important truth. It's not the conflict itself that damages relationships, it's how we handle it. When you avoid discussing important issues, your partner is left to guess your feelings, or worse, interpret your silence as disinterest or indifference. Over time, this erodes trust. But when you approach these conversations with respect and a willingness to listen, you demonstrate your commitment to the relationship. So how can you handle these moments better? Start with timing. Difficult conversations should never happen in the heat of the moment. Choose a calm time when both of you can focus without distractions. And before diving in, prepare yourself. Reflect on your emotions and clarify what you want to communicate. Are you expressing a concern, asking for change, or simply sharing your perspective? Being clear about your intention can prevent misunderstandings. Next, consider your tone. A Stoic mindset reminds us to stay calm and measured, even when discussing sensitive topics. Instead of blaming or accusing, use I statements like, "I feel hurt when," or "I need more support with." This approach avoids defensiveness and keeps the conversation constructive. Remember, the goal isn't to win an argument, it's to find a resolution that works for both of you. Listening is just as important as speaking. When your partner responds, give them your full attention. Avoid interrupting, and instead, ask questions to better understand their perspective. For example, "Can you tell me more about why you feel that way?" This not only shows respect, but also helps you uncover the root of the issue. Real growth comes from understanding, not from proving who's right. Of course, some conversations might not lead to immediate solutions, and that's okay. The act of talking itself, of opening the door to honest communication, is a victory. It shows that you're willing to face challenges together, even if the answers aren't clear yet. Stoic relationships thrive on this willingness to engage with difficulty rather than avoid it. Now, think about the conversations you've been avoiding. Maybe it's about something big like money or commitment. Or maybe it's something small but still significant, like feeling unappreciated or needing more quality time. What would happen if you brought it up today? What fears are holding you back? And are those fears worth the cost of silence? The strength of a relationship isn't measured by how often you agree, but by how you navigate the times you don't. So the next time you're tempted to avoid a tough topic, remember this. Every conversation you have is a chance to build something stronger. Every moment of honesty is a step toward deeper intimacy. If you've ever avoided a conversation because it felt too difficult, you're not alone. But let's commit to doing better. Like this video and comment number 1 below if you've ever been in that situation. Let's talk about how we can approach these moments with courage and empathy. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for more insights on how to navigate relationships with the wisdom of Stoicism and practical strategies for real-life connection. By facing what's uncomfortable, you're not just strengthening your relationship, you're growing as a person. And that's the essence of Stoic relationships. Embracing challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to grow together. 5. Never hold grudges. Have you ever found yourself replaying an argument in your mind, feeling the same anger and frustration as if it just happened? Maybe it's a disagreement from weeks, months, or even years ago. Now let me ask you this. Who benefits from holding on to that grudge? Does it bring you closer to your partner? Or does it create a quiet, invisible wall between you? Holding grudges in a relationship is like carrying a heavy bag everywhere you go. At first, it might not seem like a big deal, but over time, the weight becomes unbearable. And the worst part, it doesn't just affect you. It affects your partner, the connection you share, and the future you're trying to build together. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, emotions, and actions. But when we hold on to grudges, we relinquish that control to the past, allowing it to dictate the present. Grudges thrive on unresolved emotions. Perhaps your partner hurt you with their words or actions, and instead of addressing it openly, you chose to bury it. But buried feelings don't disappear, they resurface, often in the form of passive aggressiveness, resentment, or cold distance. Over time, these emotions create a toxic cycle where the relationship becomes weighed down by unspoken tensions. Ask yourself, is holding on to this grudge serving you, or is it keeping you stuck in a place of pain and anger? While it's natural to feel hurt when wronged, the Stoic mindset encourages us to shift our focus. Instead of dwelling on the harm done to us, we're called to examine our response. What would it look like to let go of the grudge, not for their sake, but for yours? Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or pretending nothing happened. It means releasing the hold that resentment has on you. It's a conscious choice to free yourself from the emotional burden of the past. This is not a passive act. It requires strength and intentionality. And when forgiveness is offered with sincerity, it becomes a powerful force for healing and renewal. Consider this. Grudges often stem from unmet expectations or misunderstandings. What if you approach the situation with curiosity rather than judgment? What if, instead of assuming the worst, you sought clarity? Many conflicts in relationships arise not from malice but from miscommunication. By seeking to understand rather than accuse, you create space for resolution instead of escalation. It's also crucial to reflect on your own role in the dynamic. Have you ever made a mistake or hurt your partner unintentionally? How did it feel when they forgave you or didn't? Relationships require grace on both sides. When you forgive your partner, you're not only giving them a chance to grow, you're giving yourself permission to move forward without the weight of anger holding you back. Letting go of a grudge doesn't mean forgetting the lesson. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The Stoic principle of learning from adversity applies here. Every challenge, including conflict in a relationship, is an opportunity to grow. What did the situation teach you about your partner, your communication, or yourself? How can you use that knowledge to strengthen your relationship moving forward? Grudges also prevent you from fully experiencing the present. When you're caught up in past wrongs, you miss the joy and connection of the current moment. Think about the energy it takes to hold on to resentment. Now imagine redirecting that energy toward rebuilding trust, creating new memories, and fostering intimacy. Isn't that a more fulfilling use of your emotional resources? Of course, letting go isn't always easy. Deep hurts can take time to heal, and that's okay. Forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. Start by acknowledging the pain, expressing your feelings to your partner, and setting clear boundaries if necessary. This doesn't mean avoiding the issue, it means addressing it with the intention of moving forward, not staying stuck. Ultimately, holding a grudge is like keeping an open wound. It may seem small, but over time it festers, spreading bitterness through every aspect of the relationship. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is the healing balm that allows both partners to move forward with clarity and compassion. So ask yourself, what grudges might you be holding on to right now? What would it take to release them, not as an act of surrender, but as an act of strength? Stoic relationships are built on resilience and intentionality, and forgiveness is a cornerstone of that foundation. It allows you to prioritize the connection over the conflict, growth over grudges, and love over resentment. By letting go, you don't lose power, you reclaim it. You take control of your emotional well-being and make room for a relationship that isn't burdened by the past. 6. Never stop putting in effort. How often do we hear the phrase, relationships take work? It's said so often that it risks becoming a cliché, but let me ask you, how much effort are you putting into your relationship right now? Are you still showing up for your partner with the same energy and enthusiasm as you did in the beginning? Or has comfort turned into complacency? If we're honest with ourselves, we've all let the effort slide at times, but here's the hard truth. When effort stops, connection fades. Think back to the early days of your relationship. Do you remember how much thought you put into making your partner smile, planning dates, or even sending that perfectly worded text? Every little detail mattered, but over time, routines take over, and the things we once did with excitement become afterthoughts. We assume our partner knows we care, but is that enough? Stoicism reminds us to stay intentional, to live deliberately in every action. The same principle applies to relationships. What intentional efforts are you making to keep the flame alive? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if they love me, they'll understand. But love, no matter how strong, needs nurturing. Relationships thrive when both partners actively invest in them. Effort is how you show your partner that they matter, not just through words, but through actions. The small gestures, the thoughtful surprises, and the time you carve out for each other are all signs that you value the bond you share. Let's take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you planned something special for your partner? When was the last time you truly listened to them without distractions? If it's been a while, don't be too hard on yourself. Life gets busy, and routines can make it easy to prioritize everything but your relationship. The key is recognizing when it's time to re-engage and recommit. Effort doesn't have to mean grand gestures. While a surprise getaway or an elaborate date night can be wonderful, it's the consistent, everyday actions that truly sustain a relationship. Waking up a little earlier to make your partner's favorite coffee, leaving a handwritten note, or simply asking, "How was your day?" with genuine interest can mean more than any expensive gift. These moments remind your partner that they're seen, valued, and loved. What happens when effort disappears? Resentment can build, and the relationship can begin to feel transactional rather than emotional. One partner may start to feel like they're giving more than they're receiving, creating an imbalance that leads to frustration. This is why mutual effort is so crucial. It ensures that both people feel equally invested in their relationship success. Effort is also a way to keep curiosity alive. After years together, it's easy to assume you know everything about your partner. But people grow and change over time. When you put in the effort to stay curious, asking questions, exploring new activities together, or learning more about their dreams and fears, you deepen your connection. How well do you really know your partner today? In this moment, have you taken the time to rediscover who they are now, rather than who they were when you first met? One of the most valuable lessons from Stoicism is that consistency is the key to mastery. This applies not just to skills or habits, but also to relationships. Effort isn't about occasional bursts of romance, it's about creating a steady rhythm of care, attention, and presence. Are you willing to make effort a daily practice, not as a chore, but as a way to honor the love you share? It's important to remember that effort looks different for everyone. What makes your partner feel loved? Is it quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, or gifts? Understanding their love language can help you focus your efforts where they'll have the most impact. When your actions align with what truly matters to them, you create a connection that feels both authentic and deeply fulfilling. Let's make this interactive. If you've ever felt the shift when effort wanes in a relationship, or if you've reignited that spark by putting in more effort, like this video and comment number 1 below to share your experience. Your stories can inspire others to take action in their own relationships. And if you're enjoying these insights, subscribe to this channel for more guidance on how to build stronger, more meaningful connections rooted in the principles of Stoicism. At the end of the day, love is not a passive experience, it's an active choice. Effort is how you make that choice visible, day after day. The more you put in, the more you get back, creating a cycle of growth and happiness for both of you. So, what's one small effort you can make today to remind your partner that they're loved? Whether it's a kind word, a thoughtful gesture, or simply showing up with your full attention, take that step. Because in relationships, effort isn't just important, it's everything. 7. Never prioritize ego over the relationship. How often do we let pride take the driver's seat in our relationships? It's a quiet force, often unnoticed until it's too late. Ego, that inner voice that insists on being right, winning arguments, or protecting our image, can slowly but surely undermine even the strongest of bonds. Let me ask you this. What do you truly gain by prioritizing your ego over the well-being of your relationship? And more importantly, what do you stand to lose? In the heat of an argument, it's tempting to dig in your heels, to fight for the last word, or to refuse to back down. But what's the real cost of these small victories? When ego takes precedence, connection suffers. Stoicism reminds us to question what is truly within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses. What if, instead of clinging to pride, you chose humility and sought to understand your partner's perspective? Wouldn't that create a stronger foundation than simply proving yourself right? Ego often manifests as defensiveness or an unwillingness to admit fault. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "It's not my fault," or deflecting blame when confronted? While this might feel protective in the moment, it shuts down the opportunity for growth and resolution. A healthy relationship requires two people who are willing to own their mistakes and work toward solutions, not two people locked in a battle of who's more right. Let's reflect for a moment. Have there been times when your need to protect your pride overshadowed your ability to connect with your partner? Maybe you refused to apologize after a disagreement, even though deep down you knew it was warranted. Or perhaps you dismissed their feelings because acknowledging them felt like admitting fault. These moments might seem small, but over time they create distance and erode trust. One of the most liberating lessons of Stoicism is that admitting fault isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to say, "I was wrong," or "I'm sorry I hurt you." These words, though simple, carry immense power. They signal to your partner that you value the relationship more than your pride, and that you're committed to working through challenges together. Ego also shows up in the form of control, trying to dictate how your partner behaves, thinks, or feels. This can stem from a fear of vulnerability, a need to feel in charge, or even a desire to fix things. But relationships aren't about control, they're about partnership. When you let go of the need to dominate, you create space for mutual respect and collaboration. What would your relationship look like if you approached it as a team, rather than as adversaries trying to win? Letting go of ego doesn't mean becoming a doormat or suppressing your own needs. It means recognizing that your partner's perspective is as valid as yours. It means prioritizing understanding over being understood and finding solutions over assigning blame. This shift requires self-awareness and intentionality. Ask yourself, am I reacting out of pride or am I responding with love and empathy? When ego takes over, it's easy to forget the bigger picture. Arguments often feel like battles to be won. But what's the point of winning if it comes at the expense of your connection? The goal isn't to keep score, it's to grow together. By letting go of pride, you create an environment where vulnerability is met with compassion, not judgment. Isn't that the kind of relationship worth striving for? It's also worth noting that prioritizing ego often masks deeper fears, fear of being wrong, fear of rejection, or fear of appearing weak. But Stoicism teaches us to face our fears with courage and clarity. By confronting these fears, we free ourselves from their grip and make room for genuine connection. What would happen if you set your ego aside and truly listened to your partner's needs and feelings? How might that transform your relationship? At its core, love isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about choosing each other, again and again, even when it's hard. Ego seeks to divide, but humility brings people closer. By prioritizing the relationship over your pride, you build a bond rooted in trust, respect, and shared understanding. So the next time you find yourself clinging to pride in a conflict, pause and ask yourself, what's more important, being right or being connected? The answer, when guided by wisdom and love, is clear. Let go of the need to protect your ego and focus instead on protecting your relationship. Because in the end, it's not about winning, it's about growing together. 8. Never ignore boundaries. Boundaries, how often do we truly think about their importance in a relationship? They're not just walls meant to divide, they're bridges that allow two people to connect in a way that's respectful, safe, and sustainable. But let me ask you this. Have you ever crossed a line without realizing it? Or perhaps allowed your own boundaries to be overlooked? Ignoring boundaries, whether intentional or not, is one of the quickest ways to erode trust and create tension in a relationship. Every person brings their unique needs, values, and limits into a partnership. Boundaries are simply a way to honor those differences. But here's the challenge. Understanding and respecting boundaries requires effort, communication, and self-awareness. When we dismiss or overlook them, we send an unspoken message that our partner's needs don't matter as much as our own. How do you think that affects the foundation of trust and mutual respect in a relationship? So think about it this way. Have you ever pressured your partner to say yes to something they were uncomfortable with, or brushed off their request for space, assuming it wasn't that important? These moments might seem small, but they can leave lasting impressions. When boundaries are ignored, it creates a dynamic where one person feels unheard or even violated. The result? Resentment, frustration, and emotional distance. Stoicism teaches us to be mindful of our actions and their impact on others. Respecting boundaries isn't just about restraint, it's about showing empathy and valuing your partner's autonomy. Their boundaries aren't there to exclude you, they're there to protect their well-being, and by extension, the health of the relationship. So how often do you check in with your partner about their boundaries? Are you actively listening to what they need and respecting those limits? At the same time, setting your own boundaries is just as crucial. Relationships aren't about sacrificing yourself to keep the peace. They're about balance. When you neglect your own limits, you risk burnout, resentment, and a loss of identity. Have you ever said yes to something you didn't want to do just to avoid conflict? While it might seem like a short-term solution, it ultimately chips away at your sense of self. How can you show up as your best self in a relationship if your own needs are constantly overlooked? Respecting boundaries also means accepting that they might change over time. Life isn't static, and neither are relationships. What worked in the beginning might no longer feel right after months or years together. Maybe your partner needs more space to pursue their passions, or you need clearer communication around shared responsibilities. Whatever the case, boundaries are an evolving conversation, not a one-time agreement. How often are you revisiting this conversation with your partner? One of the most effective ways to respect boundaries is to ask questions rather than make assumptions. For example, instead of assuming your partner is fine with a decision, try asking, "How do you feel about this?" Or "Is this okay with you?" These simple questions show that you value their perspective and want to ensure their comfort. It's a small effort that can make a big difference. But what happens when boundaries are crossed? Mistakes happen, and it's how you respond that matters most. Acknowledge the misstep, apologize sincerely, and commit to doing better. Avoid defensiveness or trying to justify your actions. This only diminishes the trust you're working to rebuild. A heartfelt apology signals that you take their boundaries seriously and value the relationship enough to learn from your mistakes. When boundaries are respected, relationships thrive. There's a sense of safety and mutual understanding that allows both partners to be vulnerable without fear of judgment or intrusion. Isn't that the kind of connection we all want? By respecting boundaries, you're not just protecting your partner, you're strengthening the bond between you. So let's reflect. What boundaries might you need to revisit in your relationship? What steps can you take today to show your partner that their needs matter? Boundaries aren't limitations, they're opportunities to build a deeper, more respectful partnership. If this resonates with you, like this video and comment number 1 below to let me know you're ready to make boundaries a priority in your relationship. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more insights on building relationships rooted in respect, trust, and the wisdom of Stoicism. 9. Never assume your partner can read your mind. How often have you caught yourself thinking, "They should know how I feel," or "I shouldn't have to explain this to them"? It's a common assumption in relationships. But let me ask you this. How realistic is it to expect someone, even the person closest to you, to read your mind? Relationships are built on communication, not telepathy. Assuming your partner can anticipate your needs, emotions, or desires without being told is not only unfair, it's a recipe for frustration and misunderstanding. At the core of this issue lies a fundamental truth. No matter how well your partner knows you, they can't always predict what you're thinking or feeling. People interpret situations based on their own perspectives, not yours. Without clear communication, your partner is left to guess, and those guesses may not always align with what you need. Have you ever been upset when your partner didn't act the way you hoped, only to realize later that you never actually told them what you wanted? Stoicism emphasizes the importance of clarity in both thought and action. When it comes to relationships, this clarity is essential. Instead of expecting your partner to understand unspoken needs, why not express them openly? Clear communication isn't a sign of weakness or a lack of connection. It's a sign of respect for both yourself and your partner. By articulating your feelings, you give them the opportunity to respond in a way that supports and strengthens your bond. Consider this. When was the last time you assumed your partner should have known something about you? Maybe it was your need for more quality time, your preference for a certain kind of support during stress, or even something as simple as wanting them to remember an important date. How did that assumption play out? Did it lead to closeness, or did it create tension and disappointment? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if they really loved me, they'd know. But love isn't about mind reading, it's about effort, understanding, and communication. Assuming your partner can intuit your needs places an unfair burden on them while leaving you unsatisfied. Why not take control of the situation by expressing yourself clearly? What do you lose by speaking up? And more importantly, what do you gain? On the flip side, have you ever felt overwhelmed by your partner's unspoken expectations? Maybe they seemed upset but refused to explain why, or they expected you to notice something you completely missed. How did that make you feel? Likely confused, frustrated, or even inadequate. This dynamic goes both ways. Clarity benefits both partners by reducing misunderstandings and fostering a sense of teamwork. Being open about your thoughts and feelings doesn't mean you have to communicate perfectly all the time. It's okay to take a moment to gather your thoughts before expressing them. What matters is your intention, showing your partner that you value the relationship enough to make the effort. And when you approach these conversations with a calm, stoic mindset, you're less likely to let emotions cloud the message. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and in relationships, that starts with how we communicate. For example, instead of saying, "You never pay attention to me," try, "I've been feeling a little neglected lately, and I'd love it if we could spend more time together." This shift from blame to vulnerability not only avoids defensiveness, but also invites your partner to respond with empathy. The way you frame your words can make all the difference in how they're received. Expressing your needs also strengthens trust. When your partner knows that you'll share your thoughts openly, they no longer have to guess or fear misstepping. This creates a foundation of safety and understanding where both of you can thrive. Over time, this practice becomes second nature, allowing your relationship to grow in depth and connection. Assuming your partner can read your mind isn't just unrealistic, it's unfair to both of you. By choosing to communicate clearly, you're fostering a relationship based on mutual respect, understanding, and intentionality. Isn't that far more fulfilling than leaving things unsaid and hoping for the best? So as you reflect on this, ask yourself, what unspoken expectations have you been holding on to? What would happen if you chose to share them instead of assuming your partner already knows? By taking this step, you're not only strengthening your connection, you're giving your partner the tools they need to love and support you fully. After all, the foundation of a strong relationship isn't mind reading, it's communication. Relationships are some of life's most profound and rewarding experiences, but they require care, self-awareness, and intentional effort to thrive. As we've explored the 9 things you should never do in relationships, it's clear that the small, often overlooked actions or inactions can have a significant impact on the connection you share with your partner. Each of these pitfalls, whether it's taking your partner for granted, dismissing their feelings, comparing them to others, avoiding hard conversations, holding grudges, neglecting effort, prioritizing ego, ignoring boundaries, or expecting them to read your mind, teaches us an important lesson about love. Relationships aren't about perfection. They're about growth, mutual respect, and the ability to navigate life's challenges as a team. The wisdom of Stoicism reminds us to focus on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses. By choosing to act with intention and empathy, we create space for deeper connection and understanding. When we let go of harmful behaviors and embrace principles like gratitude, clarity, and respect, we transform not only our relationships but also ourselves. So what steps can you take today to strengthen your bond with your partner? Maybe it's expressing appreciation for something they've done, initiating a conversation you've been avoiding, or simply asking them what they need most from you. Small, thoughtful actions have the power to create lasting change. If you've made it this far, it means you're committed to fostering a healthier, more fulfilling relationship. And that's something to celebrate. Take what you've learned here and put it into practice. Not tomorrow, not someday, start now. Because the love and connection you desire aren't built on grand gestures or fleeting moments, they're built on consistent, meaningful choices. Thank you for joining this journey of reflection and growth. Remember, every step you take toward understanding and nurturing your relationship is a step toward a more meaningful and fulfilling life. Wishing you the strength, wisdom, and joy that come with building a partnership rooted in authenticity and care. Here's to creating relationships that not only survive but truly thrive.